author Gail Dudley. And we also have on the panel, we have Jane Doe. Tonight, I want to introduce Gail's book, and it's called, one of her many books, and her book is called Ready to Change My Name, because I'm about to change my mind. Ready to Change My Name, a spiritual journey from fear to faith. And Gail, can you just give us a little bit of background on Ready to Change My Name? Because when I first seen the title of your book back in, I think it was 2008 when I met you, I thought it had something to do with getting married. You know, ready to change your name. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. How about yours? Does it come to your mind? So give us a little background on what is Ready to Change My Name.
Well, it all began with just having a life of fear. And one day I came across the book of Ruth in the Bible, and I began to read it, and I realized that Orpah, she started on this journey with Naomi and Ruth. But then, because she wanted to turn back and do something different, I began to really research and dig into that. And I found that she was afraid. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about my fears and all the baggage that I had. And I thought, how can I change my name from fear to faith? What do I need to do? So it's not about getting married or anything like that. Or we could say it's about getting married to Jesus and getting rid of all that baggage.
Right.
But it was about changing my name and not look at things so timid or fearful or worrying or concerned, but to look at it as to say, you know what, God, I'm ready to follow you, and whatever that looks like and whatever that means, I'm willing to do it. So that's really, when I began to read the book of Ruth, I said, wow, I paid attention to Orpah, not Naomi, not Ruth, but Orpah, to say, why is she turning back?
And a lot of times we pay attention more so to Ruth, because, especially singles, because we want that Boaz. We want what's at the end. So I know when I was actually single and I wanted to get married, but I was tired of doing it the old way, I said, let me look to God's word to see what some of these women was doing so I can kind of map my life out around some of those characteristics. And again, Ruth.
Right.
Looking at Ruth, we was like, okay, Oprah, is it Oprah? Opal. Oprah?
Oh.
What's her name?
Orpah.
Orpah, the one that didn't go.
Right.
You look at her and you only see her for a brief second, but you've seen more to it. So tell us a little bit more about, let's go to chapter 1, and then actually I want to focus tonight on chapter 3, but just to touch on chapter 1, you talk about, is your name Orpah? Orpah.
Yes, Orpah. I really try to get people to dig, to see their inner self, and to say, okay, how many of us are double-minded? How many of us have started out on a journey, and because of the unknown, we make a decision to quit or to turn back? Mm-hmm. So I go through that first chapter and say, is your name Orpah? Do you have some characteristics of Orpah? Mm-hmm. Do you want to move forward, but, I think life is better where I used to be back there, and knowing all along you left the what was in the rear. You left that at some point. And we have to begin to say, why did I leave that? But because we're comfortable and it's familiar, we want to go back. So I really get the reader to dig into, okay, let's look at Orpah. Let's outline her characteristics. But then at the same time, let's look at our individual lives and ask the question, okay, what is it about her that I mirror? And do I even like it? And in reading and really digging into Orpah, I said, wow, she was always the one, I'll use the word, that she was a coward. She was the one who was always waiting to see who was going to move first. The thing that was interesting about her is that she was willing to turn back. So she was willing to take this step, but it wasn't a good thing. So somebody may say, well, she was on her own and she decided to turn back. I said, yeah, but she turned back to what she believed to have been rich and prosperous, because she was unaware or unsure as to what was ahead. And in our daily lives, so many of us are there. I see that over and over and over again. We say we want a business, or we say we want to build a ministry, or we say we want to get married, or we say we want to move out, or we want to leave a job. But as soon as we think about the unknown, we're like, nah, scratch that. But I always say you are almost to your favor, but many of us miss that favor for that moment because we pull back because we're afraid. We don't know what's ahead. I think about something personal in my life, and you cut me off whenever you're ready, Kelly. In my life where it's like, I'm ready to take another step, but I don't really know what the other step looks like. So I'm thinking, I need to stay right where I'm at, where I know what's going on. But I know the Lord is pushing me. And just the other day I was sharing with my husband, I said, I want it, but I need some more revelation knowledge first. But I'm singing that God's not giving me that yet. So I'm like, he's waiting for me to take a step. So that's where I'm at. I don't want to turn back though, so I'm kind of like stuck in the middle.
Okay. Moving on, so that's our introduction to who Orpah was. Chapter 3. Actually, when I read the book, the whole entire book is great. But chapter 3 is the one that I kept going back to and the one I kept staying in because a lot of times, and I've shared this before here at Conversations with Kelly, a lot of time for women, we love to put up facades for each other. We like to put on a show for each other. We don't like to show each other who we really are. That's why for a long time, I didn't allow people to see who I really was because I was always put on this pedestal like I was back in the day. I was Kelly Hodge. Nothing upsets me. She's always fun. She's always happy and all that. But little did people know that I was depressed a lot. People seen me one way on the outside, but they didn't go home to me and see me in my room. So let's walk us through chapter 3, which is called Removal of Mask. And you start the book off the question, real or phony? That is the question. And then you go on to say, can we talk? I mean, really talk. Take us on that journey.
Well, as you've already pointed out, women wear masks. We have so many masks. They come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And depending upon who we are having a conversation with or where we are going, that's where we go in our closet and we say, this is the mask that I wear for today. Believe it or not, we even wear the depressed mask because we want to get attention. Or we wear the mask of everything's good because we want everyone to know that nothing bothers me. Or we even will wear the mask of, let me see, do I have to be careful on the set?
Don't cuss. Let's not use no names.
No names. We will also wear the mask of, I want something from you, so I need to put on this face in order to get it. We wear so many masks. And the point of this book, the point of that chapter is, at some point you have to face yourself in the mirror. And you have to ask yourself, who am I really? Because with the wearing of so many different masks, we lose ourselves. We have no idea any longer who we are. Because we have pretended for so much. Growing up, we played the pretend game.
Yeah.
We played dress up. We had a certain look. We had a certain style. And then the real person came out. I'm reminded of the game show, will the real fill in the blank please stand up? And although everybody, throughout that game show, you're thinking that could be any one of them. But the real person has to come forward, and you really have to deal with your stuff. And that was a very painful time in my life that I had to really deal with, okay, what's really going on with me? And it's not an easy piece at all. I remember when my husband went to seminary, the first time going through seminary. It was interesting because we moved back to Columbus, Ohio, and we stayed at the seminary up off of in Bexley off of Main Street, and we were in this like Cracker Jack box where you could literally hear the neighbors like two doors down through the walls. That's how paper thin. So if you had an argument, you had to whisper the argument. or else somebody would hear that, and I'm grown. I got a baby that was just born, like maybe 2 months old. I have a son in elementary school. And it was just interesting to me because I would play this, I had on the mask that said everything was well.
Give us some background on where you came from prior to getting to the Cracker Jack box. Let's go back a little bit, if you care to share that.
Sure. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, in College Park, and had a very nice home. In-ground pool, just the work. Girl, yes, sister. Just the works, had everything. It wasn't a small pool. It was a huge pool. Went to 12 feet. 12 feet deep, so that can give you just a picture of what the pool was like. Living large, if you will. And then when my husband said we're going to go in the seminary, I was like, what? And I did everything I possibly could to stop that move because I knew life was going to be different. People would say, have you packed? I was like, no, I didn't pack a box. It was like, I'm just not doing that. So eventually, as you know, I arrived here. And when I saw the apartment, and they considered them apartments, not dormitories, I cracked up laughing. I said, are you kidding me? I mean, you had to take a crank, I call it, to open one window or close it. And you had to remove that crank to go to the next window. Mm-hmm. I ain't lived like that in Atlanta. So I was like, dude, what? You need a crank. Even when I was calling the management office, what crank? What is that? And I learned how to do this. I'm going, this is a bit interesting, a bit much. Giving up furniture because it was a box. The king-size bed couldn't fit in there was no such thing as a master bedroom. That didn't exist. So it was like, we got to put a double bed. I'm not used to sleeping all like that. Give me some room when I'm ready to go to sleep. Right. So life was different. We even went from a very decent car to a van, an Aerostar van. I won't forget this van to save my life. Where when we were at the stoplight, we had to put it in neutral. Or else it would cut off.
There's been some days like that.
So we went from one thing to
everybody
another.
know about the neutral.
Right.
Because you won't get embarrassed because the car gonna cut off if you go in. So you just put it in neutral. Or check this out. What about when you know your muffler loud? So you take your foot off the gas and let it cruise so nobody knows. Go ahead, finish your story. I just want to see that one.
You're right though. You're right. So you feel me. You feel me. But I wore this mask that, it's good. It's good. And I have friends who would come by and they would be nice about the furniture. Because the carpet wasn't even as good as this carpet. It was straight up the outside porch carpet in the apartment. So it was interesting. It was different.
It wasn't what you was used to.
It was not what I was used to at all. So in doing that, money started changing because he's now in school. My mom, fortunately, lives here, so she was our babysitter. And I would literally come pick the children up because I'm looking for work when I knew dinner time was coming. Thinking I'm perfect. They will never know. Where I find out, now my parents knew all along what was going on. But I wouldn't tell them. I was like, they was like, you want to stay for dinner? Sure. Yeah, we might as well go ahead and stay here. And even to the point of, I don't feel like cooking, so I'm going to wrap a plate up to take home to Kevin. That was how I was perpetrating this, because I didn't want anybody to know. That was a mask. My friends would come by, and they would say, girl, you need anything? And they would bring groceries. I'm like, what you bring groceries for? We got food. Praying they wouldn't go in the kitchen. Okay? My son needed to take some Rice Krispie treats to school. And he went to school at Bexley Elementary School. So my husband says, okay, we can't afford the Rice Krispies, so we're going to get the makeshift brand. Okay, the marshmallows wouldn't even make it form. And I went to taste them, and I was like, he can't take these to school. Because they were phony, they were fake. Okay? And my son's saying, but I've already told him I'm taking this. Well, we're going to tell him something happened. The oven didn't work or something. Another mask. And where the truth is, it became a lie. Because I was starting to live a life that was a lie. And it was a mask after mask after mask after mask, to the point of, okay, what mask do I have today? It's only by the grace of God I didn't go crazy.
Why did you feel that you needed to wear, okay, I get it with the friends. Because we
Right.
all have put on
We all
these
have.
facades with these friends, and I don't know what it is about friends that we feel like we have to be something that we're not. But when it comes to our own family, like my mom, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. But I don't necessarily know that I would go to I go with Monica's, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. But it all depends on how I acted prior to me having to lose some things. Now, I think that if I was walking around as if I didn't need nobody and things like that, I don't know that I would feel comfortable going to them. Because then in your mind is, I wonder what they think. And they probably saying, told you so, or they probably happy that I lost everything. But if I had it like that, and I still was humble,
Okay.
I think if I lost it, I think I could then go. But just certain family members, because I still wouldn't want other ones to really
To know.
So yeah.
Well, and I would start with my parents. I thought I was protecting my husband.
Oh, I got you.
Because he, supposed to take care of the family. So I was protecting him, I thought. But what was beautiful about that, although it was still wrong, the beauty is my parents knew, and they said, oh, we'll play this with you. We're going to protect whatever you're going through. We'll protect that. Looking back on it today, that was real love. That was real love. But like you, and I'm going to just keep it real here, it was that my family looked at me as the success. And then I'm back to where no longer have that title. I thought. But a person is successful no matter if they lose everything or not. Because it's who they are. It's who they are and what they have. But I had to learn that. I had to learn that. And it's a growing thing. And it didn't mean that I wasn't a Christian. It was that I began to put my faith and hope in things, material things, and not in God. Because when you go through the Bible, yeah, there was rich people, but who did Jesus hang out with?
People of low status and things like that.
Everyday common life. To where now I'm very funny of things that I do and don't do. It's like, people will say, girl, these shoes cost such and such. I'm like, and you are crazy. 5 families can be fed with that money when you can get the same kind of shoes from TJ Maxx.
I'm always suspect when, I always share this with my daughter, when you gotta constantly tell people what you got or what you about to do. I tell my daughter, my kids all the time, when people do that, they ain't used to having nothing.
Right.
That's Kelly's opinion. That ain't Bible. That's Kelly's opinion. But it is, if you gotta keep saying, oh, I got $500 shoes, you know what? Your shoes will speak for itself. You don't have to say one word. But when you go, you're suspect when everything about you is a dollar sign. Oh, I got on Gucci. I got on Versace. I got on this. Oh, did you know this was this and this is this and all this and this and that? To me, who are you? Let's take that out. Are you a label?
Right.
What are you? So again, we have to be careful with those things. And I'm not going to say that I never defined myself by things. I mean, I couldn't afford no Gucci, so I couldn't say these Gucci boots might have been knockoff from the boot shop. Y'all know them ones. But again, there's been times where I've defined myself by how I looked. Hair had to be perfect. I'm talking about, don't touch it. I still like my hair look nice. Hair had to be perfect. Makeup had to be good. I had to look a certain way because I know that when I would come, this was before Christ, and even while sometimes still in Christ, but I believe that I have been delivered from this. I knew when I stepped up in the club, like, bam, they was going to be like, woo, who is that? Because I knew that my gear was tight, my hair was tight, and I looked good. But guess what? My inside was screaming, help me. Somebody help me. But again, when you go in there and you trading stories with your girlfriends and things like that, everybody got this story like they got it going on. And there was one time I was sitting in the club with BB outfits on and doing my thing in House in Foreclosure. What you know about that one?
Hey.
So you can, and guess what? People knew. But here I'm thinking that people didn't know.
Right.
No, so I just think that when we get to a place where we just need to really, it's a scary thing to know you. Not for me to know Liz, Jane Doe, or me to know Gail, but for Gail to know Gail.
Right.
Or for Kelly to know Kelly, and Jane Doe don't know who she is, still figuring it out.
Right.
But it's a scary thing. Like I had shared one time, I believe on the show, and I was like, go home and take all your clothes off and stand in the mirror. That's some uncomfortable thing. Even when you're by yourself, can you actually stand in the mirror, butthole naked? Was I supposed to say butthole? Reese gonna kill me. Behind naked. Is butthole good? Butthole naked. And just stand there. I mean, can you actually just stand there and just look at yourself? A lot of times I would get nervous. Like today, I was doing my hair and I was half naked. And I got to zeroing in on some parts that done gained some weight, and I went and I had to put something on. And I'm home by myself. Me, myself, and I. But a lot of times I think we try to be something we are not, because could it be that we're just not comfortable with who God has made us to be?
So often, if you challenge people, you'll find that they may not even like themselves.
They'll say they do.
They'll say they do. And I have this new thing now where the Bible says to love your neighbor as yourself. And I say, but people can't even love because they don't love themselves, because they don't know who they are. And I think that's a challenge for so many. That's a challenge for so many women, is that they do not take the time to know who they are. Women won't even sit in silence sometimes. Because the silence scared them. They're afraid that the audible voice is going to speak to their spirit. So they always have to have something going on, the television, the radio, something going on. It's like, just be still, be quiet. Find out who you are. But when we begin to pull those layers back, like an onion, and peel that layer beyond layer and so forth and so on, we start seeing some things and we realize that's ugly. But when you see that it's ugly, it's not for you to cover it back up. It's for you to deal with the ugliness. You know, it's what's here. And why am I seeing this? And what do I need to change about myself? I'm afraid to say this, but I believe there's so much truth to this. We have a fear of ourselves. You know, who are you? Really? Who are you? What do you really like? Not what your friend like, but what do you really like? You know, what do you want to go to school for? Not where your friend is going. And I have a 17-year-old daughter. I hope she's not watching this, but I have a 17-year-old, I'm going to bust on her. She applied to 3 schools, got accepted into all 3. And I was asking her about one of the schools that she picked. And I realized later that several friends had applied there as well. I said, okay, wait a minute. Where do you really want to go? And why do you want to go there? And now she's standalone going, she's one of the schools was Howard. So now she's going to Howard. But it was interesting because the other friends were pulling her to come the other direction. I said, but where do you want to go? What do you want to go to school for? And then I looked it up. I said, they don't even have that. So why would you go to something they don't even have? I said, be yourself. I said, you have a choice to be a leader or a follower. I said, I'm hoping that you choose to be the leader and not the follower. But I think we allow so many people to speak things into our lives, and we begin to mimic those things because that's what we see. Let's deal with church for a moment. Okay. How many times do we mimic the person that's shouting?
make sure that we outdo them the next time.
Outdo them the next time. You know, I'll
Or
share
even
this.
when you're ministering the gospel, so many people that unbelievers need our voices so much, but we're so busy trying to minister to each other. Okay, she did her sermon. I know she had a few points, but I know I could do that one better.
Right.
And there's a dying world out here that needs us, and we too busy in competition with each other, trying to see who can outdo whose sermon or Sunday school class or things like that. When the world is so big, he got a place for you, he got a place for me, he got a place for all. Or when we try to, like you said, trying to mimic somebody else's ministry.
Yeah, whatever they're doing. I was listening to a woman pray. This is about 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm listening, I'm like, that sounds like me. I mean, just the whole way that she was praying. And I was like, okay, am I weird here? What's going on? And then some lady walked up to me later and said, so what did you think of mini-me? That's what she called her. And I said, okay, so I wasn't crazy. She said, no. And I said, well, why did she do that? She has a beautiful prayer language and how she's been drawn to prayer.
Really just enjoy the way that you pray. Because a lot of times it's not necessarily where people just love to copy you. Can we say that? Sometimes people really enjoy the way that you minister in prayer, that they want to mimic that because they think that is the way to
And
pray.
that could be. But is that authentic?
No, it's not authentic.
And that's where I look at it.
It's not authentic. No, it's not authentic. It's not authentic.
She was trying.
But there's been times where I didn't want to pray out loud because I used to hear, them prayers. Lord, I look to the hills which cometh my help, and my help is from the Lord. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and all that, and I'm like, I can't do that. I can't remember all them verses.
But what's wrong with just saying Jesus?
But I wanted to. But I found myself, that's good. I wanted to. One time I was trying to, and I got tongue-tied. I might have said 1,000 hills, 1,000,000 hills, or cats, dogs on 1,000 hills. But again, sometimes I think because I felt, what word am I looking for? I felt like I was insufficient. Is that a word?
Insignificant?
Insignificant or insufficient, where I didn't think that I was good enough to pray or good enough to do a certain thing, where I just kind of focused in on somebody else that seemed like they were doing it perfect. Because I'm not going to lie, when you come to pray, you got the bomb prayer. It seemed like you be all up in them realms though, calling on Jesus. And then there's times where I listen to Sister Curry. She gets it going. I mean, she really knows what's going on. And then sometimes I might sit back and be like, I wish I could go up in them realms like they be. Y'all be all up in them clouds and stuff like that. Sometimes I just be down here and I might have to send a note to Jesus or send an email or write it in my journal. But a lot of times, do we do it because we just want to be that person, or do we just feel like I'm not good enough and I want to mimic the next thing that I think is?
I would say that it depends. There are some people who like to mimic. And we all see that at some point in time. Let's use television today. I won't use any names. But let's use television today. How many people are out front today where you see young girls or women mimicking those individuals?
Yeah.
It's the strangest thing. And it's like, be yourself.
But in order to be yourself, Gail, you
gotta
know who
you gotta know.
So let's go here. How do you, you said you had all these different masks. We see today. How did you reach the point to where you finally faced it and said, no more, I can't do this no more?
I don't know if it's in that chapter or the next chapter that's transformation. It might be the mass chapter. I came to a point where, one day someone was telling me what I liked and what I didn't like. And it was almost like a light bulb went on. Like, you don't know what I like, what I don't like? And been praying for it too. God, show me me. I don't care how painful it is. And let me say this: if you ain't ready to pray that prayer, don't.
He will.
Because he will. When he knows that you are sincere about wanting to know, he will show you. And it's going to be a shock. It's going to be a shock. But I had prayed that prayer, and one day in a conversation, a friend was beginning to tell me what I liked and didn't like. And we were at a store, and she was trying to get me to buy something that I didn't want to buy. And it was as if this strength came out of nowhere, and I said, that's not me. I don't want to buy that. She was, oh, here, get this. Well, then I'll get it for you. No, we're not going to do that, because that's not what I want. And from that moment on, it was like, bam. It was like, I'm all the way behind now. The reverse to that was I began to see people move away from me. And that was like, whoa, wait a minute. But I realize now, they were around me because they were able to manipulate me and get me to do what they wanted me to do. I've since learned, and when you look in the book of Revelation, that last chapter there, that manipulation is a form of witchcraft. And it's like you're on strings and you're being this puppet. And I was like, whoa, that was me? And God like, yeah, that was you. I'm glad you woke up. And now I'm afraid sometimes, not afraid in a bad sense, that I'm so far the other way that I can shut somebody down in a minute. And I have to learn how to soften that to some degree. Because I'll tell somebody, no, that's not me. No, that's not happening. A friend of mine was telling our church during Bible study this past Wednesday, we had gone to Miami. I was there ministering, and she came along with me as another female pastor. And this woman decided she wanted to prophesy over people. And all throughout that day, I could tell there was some sense of, I don't know if it was jealousy, and I don't know what was going on.
So, room full of women?
Room full of women. and so she comes to grab my hand, and I'm very, very funny who prays over me. I'm just very funny about that. So, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, don't act a fool. Can I say fool? Don't act a fool, but just be mindful. Well, she went to grab my hands, and immediately my discernment said, oh, no, So she said to me, she goes, I need you to look into my eyes. Now, this is a room full of people. We're on the stage. I said, nope. And she said, but I want to give you what I have. I said, no, you don't. And I ain't receiving it. And I'm telling myself, okay, find a way to do this right. But God gave me this power of, no, you need to call this out right now. Now, there was a time I would have never done that. I would have just had on a mask and so I would just go with the flow. And I said, oh, no, not doing that. And then she said to me, she goes, why aren't you receiving what I have? I have something to give you. I said, you don't have anything to give to me. I said, Jesus has something to give to me. And I said, and I could sense that it just wasn't right. Now, and I shared that to say, back in the day, I would have had on a mask and been like, oh yeah, I receive it, whatever. But because of this journey that I've taken, I was able to say, no, I'm not going to take that from you. But I do believe there has to be some balance. Because my husband tells me, and even my daughter, not too long ago, I was joking around saying I was going to run for an office. I wasn't, well, I do have that desire at some point. And my daughter said, you would do well in that. And I said, why? Okay? I love politics, but that's not what she was saying. She said, because nobody likes you now. she goes, Mom, that's not a bad thing. It just means that you wouldn't owe anybody anything. She said, because you would just say, no, I'm not doing that. And that's where I'm at now. But there was a time I would have been like, yeah, whatever you need. Because I would have been pleasing people. That would have been that mask, the pleaser mask on. But now I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Not having that.
Okay, so you had to come to the realization that you was ready to give up all those masks.
All those masks. And it's not easy. It's a process. It's a journey. It is not easy. But when you experience that freedom, you don't want to go back. You just don't want to go back.
That's good. So don't go back. tonight we're going to shift a little bit. We're going to go over into our devotional. And tonight's devotional actually is a very dear scripture, one verse that is very dear to me, and it is actually Conversations with Kelly's foundational scripture. And tonight's devotional is coming out of John 8:32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And we here at Conversations with Kelly, we stand on that because it is my belief that when we know the truth, that God's truth, that we are no longer in bondage.
Right.
Once we embrace that truth. So again tonight, the devotional is coming out at John 8:32, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Face and embrace and be set free. And ye shall know the truth. Face it by becoming aware. Come to terms with it. Come to the realization, recognizing and admitting you're wearing a mask and hiding. Come to the realization that, okay, in order to face the truth, you have to say, okay, there's a problem. There's a problem. I have been hiding behind these different masks, and I am tired. Lord, help me. It's as simple as that. Help me. Lord, help me to know who I am, whose I am, and if you don't belong to God, Lord, come into my life and make yourself Lord and Savior over my life. But again, the first part of that is to embrace. You have to, face the truth. It is what it is. I've been hiding behind a facade. I've been being something that I'm not. And today is the day that I no longer want to do this. So therefore, that is where that embrace comes from. Amen. You want to embrace the truth. And how we embrace the truth, we have to accept it. And in order to accept it, again, you have to go back to, you have to realize that there is a problem. So tonight, I just want to share with you to embrace God's truth. And that truth is you was fearfully and wonderfully made in God's image. I don't have to be Liz. I don't have to be Gail. They don't have to be me. There is a purpose and plan for your life. Jeremiah 29:11 says, what does it say?
God knows the plans
He knows the plans he had for you. He knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. So I think it's a slap in his face when we try to mimic something that he did not create us to be.
Right.
So be the best that you can be, even with your flaws, anything that you've done wrong, anything. I've done a lot of things wrong. And I know people still looking at me like, you married a pastor? You married a pastor? But again, I had to come to know who I was. I couldn't allow the world to define who Kelly, born Kelly Hodge, but now Kelly Shaw was. And again, that's what I want for everybody. Lose the mask.
Right.
Like I said, get in the mirror by yourself, not in front of people. Right. Get naked and ask God, who am I? And once he begins to show you who you are, again, begin to, like she said, allow him to peel those layers, those like an onion. Did you say onion? Peel those layers back and actually get to the root of who you are. Let go of these labels. You are not Gucci. It's okay to wear them, but you are not him. Is that a him? Gucci is him. Yes. You are not Coach. You are not any of that. I like all those types of things, but that is not who you are. Again, thank you. And if we would, and again, before I go this direction, I just want to say, will the real you please stand up? And Gail, for those who are watching and viewing us tonight, what would you say to a person who has put up a facade for their friends and family, who has struggled and lied about maybe their income, maybe buying things on credit cards, knowing they should be saving money? What would you say to that person that is doing that to try to please other people around them? What would you say to that person?
I would say right now you're in bondage, and you're a slave to things, and eventually it's going to catch up with you. I have this quote that I've shared a lot lately, is that your secrets become darkness, and your darkness may become sickness. And it's like, why Why go through sickness? Why live in darkness? Allow Jesus Christ to shine some light on it.
What advice would you also give a person that has reached a point where they are recognizing that they've been carrying a facade, they've been hiding behind masks, and what would you say to a person who has built friendships around what people thought they were and now are ready to take down the mask and be who God called them to be? What advice or what would you share with them of some of the things that they may go through getting to that point?
Well, number one, it is a process. I believe that God can do a miracle and it can happen immediately. But for most of us, it's a process because God wants us to go through a learning process. He wants to take us through. And it's going to be hard. Let me say that it's going to be hard. And you may lose some friends. But if they were your real friends, they would still be with you. And you may find that your friends also begin dropping masks. Because, sometimes we all have on a mask because we don't want anyone to know what's going on in our lives. And that's where that depression and oppression comes into play as well. But you have to go through the process. You have to be willing to give up the mask to reach freedom and to live your life based upon that freedom.
Again, her book is called Ready to Change My Name, A Spiritual Journey from Fear to Faith. And actually, they're available here. And actually, can you give that information where else they can actually get this book and other books? She wrote about 5 or 6 different books, 5 books. Can you share where those
Sure.
information is?
You can get them on my website, which is www.gaildudley.com. And that's Gail, G-A-I-L, Dudley, D-U-D-L-E-Y.com. And they're there in our resource and book section.
Good. I'd like to thank our sponsors. I would like to thank Liberty Hill Baptist Church, Overflow Ministries, Orb Consulting, Jasmine Moore, and all others who remain anonymous. Thank you for supporting us, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight for another great conversation. Thank you, Gail.